This is IsAware, powered by Intersoft Associates. IsAware is your connection to exploring the systems and software that power businesses like yours with expert insight, experience, and advice.
Welcome back to IsAware from Intersoft Associates. I am Chris Bentliff, and I'm joined as ever by Hi Goldstuff and Abe Unger. And today, guys, we're talking about Application Programming Interface, or API, which is, I guess for me, it's kind of a bridge builder, a piece of technology that's a communicator, a translator, but I'm really interested in what you guys think and how an API, if I'm not a technical person, how do I think about an API and why is it even relevant to me? Why does it even matter what an API is when I'm trying to think about my data, when I'm trying to think about my processes, when I'm trying to think about the systems that help run my company? Where does an API even fit in?
An API is the preferred way to get or put data into a third-party piece of software. It may be your piece of software, but it would come from some other piece of software, some other reason to use the information. There are a lot of ways to get data from and put data into a database, which is generally the back end of some software that you're running. And many of these, especially if the data is housed in your location, are open to you. It's a SQL Server database or an Oracle database or an Access database, which you can, if you would normally have the security credentials to go in there and get data from the various tables, and also the ability to put data in the various tables. The application programming interface, the API, kind of takes all that away from you. But more important, it can be very dangerous to simply put data into a database where you don't know its full architecture and everything that's happening, because there are a lot of what's what I'm looking for, dependencies on some of the data. So if you put it in incorrectly, you're going to mess up the data. You're going to mess up the structure, and potentially, have an outage in your environment. And using the API those are produced by the vendor of the software, so that if you're going to put information from your program into that program, it will be correct. More importantly, if the data structure in that program changes, the API handles it. You don't have to worry about that. You're totally oblivious of it. You just know that this is the data you want. So as systems become more sophisticated, the APIs will continue to work.
Abe, help me understand it in sort of context for me. So let's look at QuickBooks. We talked about QuickBooks a little bit in a previous episode. Let's say my business runs on QuickBooks. What's an example of how an API in QuickBooks connects to something else, as Hi is talking about, so that I'm interchanging or exchanging or sharing data?
Sure. So a great example of that is a scenario where in a business you may be doing work, and whatever that work is, you may be required to send out checks to vendors or send out checks to anybody. Let's say it's a county clerk in certain businesses or whatever that may be. So you have to actually produce checks. But in terms of your systems, you might have one system where you're managing all of your data, yet your accounting is all done in QuickBooks, as the example. So we need a way to communicate. We need a way for the application to tell QuickBooks, I need to generate a check or produce a check. And then when that information is produced in QuickBooks, I need a way to communicate back to the application saying a check has been produced. So there are a lot of ways of doing that. You can export files and import files, or you can do manual entry. But both of those are problematic. They require somebody in the middle who's trying to do something. Whereas with an API, the interface itself allows the two systems to talk to each other without the middleman. So you put in your information into your software, you click a button, that information goes to QuickBooks. Now QuickBooks knows it's got checks to produce. Those are produced. When those are produced, the application can talk to QuickBooks and say, give me the check numbers, give me the check dates, whatever other information you need. So the API allows for that communication, and it allows for that communication in a simple, standard fashion. And because it is a standard out there, any applications that support or have an API, that just means from your perspective that communicating with them is going to be possible and is going to be fairly straightforward. Whereas if the program does not have an API, communication with that program may be more complex. And as Hai was saying, that may mean touching a database that you don't necessarily know the structure of and don't know what you're going to do by putting data or pulling data. Whereas if there's an API, you are not concerned with what's going on behind the scenes. You just know if I want to push a check, I just say push check, here's check information, and it does the rest for you. So it makes that communication and that integration between systems very, very easy and very, very straightforward.
Now, Hai, that's interesting because what Abe is describing alleviates what you were saying before, where if we need to, as he said, touch the database. In other words, I hear that as kind of the opportunity for human error. Manual entry means that now we're duplicating work, or we could mistype a zero or whatever, and all of a sudden things go crazy. So an API removes that. It just helps the technologies talk directly to each other and keeps everything between those two technologies so that there's no opportunity for me to screw it up. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. And it also is it's a time saver. Because if you're sending checks, I think in the example that Abe referred to, if you're sending checks to a vendor outside of another system, and you need to communicate with QuickBooks, or you need to get a check done, you've got to go tell the accounting department, please give me a check for 123, and then they give you the check. You then send that to the vendor, or the accounting department sends it to the vendor, however it might be. And if the vendor then goes and says, well, I never got that check. Well, now I got to go back to the accounting department and say, was that check ever cashed? Well, if it was, that will be referenced in QuickBooks, certainly at the end of the period when they do all the check, all the check reconciliation. So I can just do it and say, oh no, that check was cashed on so-and-so, and you can tell them right away without getting up, without having to bother the accounting department or anybody else in there. And those things happen, often enough, where it's just a waste of time to have them, need to do that. So the big thing is the multiple versions of truth is certainly eliminated.
I'm going to wait for the phone. Hi.
I think somebody got it.
Okay.
It's a well-oiled machine here.
What does that mean, multiple sources of truth? Hi.
Well, if you tell we actually had it with someone who paid us recently. We send someone an invoice for $450. They sent us a check for $4,500. Same kind of a thing. You request a check for $450, and Payables writes a check for $450.
And that's because they were
$4,500. Sorry.
That's because there was that opportunity for human error. That's because a person got involved rather than just receiving something digitally, clicking a button, and the digital interfaces all take care of it.
Correct.
Would an API, would you consider that easier than other ways of managing data?
Absolutely.
Sure, because usually an API comes with definition and standards, and they're easy to follow. Whereas other kinds of integration will require other tools to get involved. So if you're dealing with, let's say, data translation services, where you've got data in one place, you got to move it to another place, you got to start working with, be it spreadsheet, be it direct communication, and do all of that work involved in getting that data and translating it and massaging it into your system with an API. You've got a well-defined function with well-defined parameters that, from a developer standpoint, you simply call and get your data. So you don't have to worry about a lot of that massaging in the middle. It becomes very, very easy to communicate.
So when I look at that example high of QuickBooks again, the API allows me to start to build an infrastructure, if you will, of automation or of interoperability, where different things can start doing different things to each other. So you talked about sort of receiving or, billables and invoices and things like that. But conceivably, the API can then continue to talk to other pieces of technology, maybe could update my CRM, my ERP, maybe could even talk to my bank account, could talk to the shipping department. So it's not limited between just two pieces of technology, right?
Well, that's correct, but there would be different APIs. It's not an API, which is the magic elixir. There are different APIs for different different software systems have different APIs. A similar example, and I might have mentioned that on a previous conversation, is we had done a system for a large publisher, and part of that involved paying the rights holder. And that was the biggest pain in the neck to do, because large corporations have these very complicated check requisitions that have to be filled out. This is a vestige from the 1980s or 1990s, where these things are just filled out. What's the GL number, all sorts of coding and the amount. And then it goes to someone for approval who's got to go through these 3 pages of information. And then it has to go to accounts payable, who's going to enter all this information, which again, entering that information a second time is, has a chance for error, for, manual, switching numbers, switching GL accounts. So if you want to build a certain GL account, then all of a sudden, you're buying yourself a Harley Davidson. That's not too good. And so, we automated that, and so we did a number of different things. That information was entered once in the system. It was always transmitted properly. There was no manual operation. Nobody had to figure out what was going on. What people saw on a screen for approval was what they needed to see. And all this other mumbo jumbo was all in the background, which was really, really important to keep the book straight. And the rights holder was literally, they were paid in a fraction of a time. They received a payment within 7 days of approval, when in the past, it would be well over a month of approval. So they were happy, they were happy with the process.
Other examples of some of these kinds of things we're talking about that may hit home a little bit is something as simple as credit card processing. Pretty much in today's day and age, you're selling something, someone's paying with a credit card, you're putting that information into a system. It's calling an API with a credit card processor to process that. So even if you don't know what an API is, you're probably using them. In systems that you either have built or systems that you're using, they're there. And those are, to help you understand what that means, you're putting in a credit card number. It talks to a processor that lets you know, is this credit card okay? Does it have any money available? Is it, marked as fraud or stolen or whatever that is? All of that is happening through these API communications. So in all of our systems, many of our clients, we've done plenty of integrations with credit card processing. I mentioned the publisher. We mentioned in a prior podcast, we were talking about the publisher and the FedEx and the proof of delivery. All of that communication was done via API. We talked to FedEx to get information, or talked to UPS to get information. Well, that communication was done via an API. We call an API, we get back results, we get back a signature. So it's out there almost everywhere, not just QuickBooks, but in all of the kinds of things that are done today, APIs are pretty standard out there. So.
And what we have a client who called us in a while back. They'd had a system done, an ERP done, which was, customer facing, and they were looking for ways to, become much more efficient. And they had a whole bunch of items that they, asked us to look at to improve the functionality of, of their website or, ERP, which delivers the service, or where the customer goes and, requests a service. And, we had, probably about 2 or 3 hours worth of conversation. We ultimately developed a roadmap of how they should go about putting this all together. But as we had more and more conversations, we figured out that their real impediment to scaling was QuickBooks, because they have clerks sitting in their office putting everything into QuickBooks. And so if they were to grow twice as large, they would have to double their staff. Forget about the errors that are going to happen. You get twice as big, the number of errors you're going to make are going to become twice as many. So just that whole process became a huge impediment to scaling. If they become 5 times as large, they're going to have to rent out and get a whole bunch of people, to do this. And we simply automated the process of taking the data from their customer-facing system, putting it into their accounting system, which happens to be QuickBooks. It could have been any system. Most of today's systems, have APIs. Current systems have APIs for communication, and they didn't have to add staff, and the staff they had were able to do more high-value tasks. They weren't just sitting there, typing in stuff, kind of, robotically. They were able to provide more high-value functions to the organization. So not only did they provide a platform to grow and scale, they also took the people that they had and kept them engaged in a much more high-value fashion.
Two great points that you both made. Really good illustrations. We use APIs all day long without realizing it. When we're using our smart speakers, when we're tracking our nutrition, when we are using our phones to connect to to see how far away the Amazon delivery is. All day long, this stuff is touching us, and we might not know it. And that brings me back to things we've talked about before, which is in the case of the QuickBooks illustration you just made. Sometimes when we talk about API and we start to get techno, my eyes glaze over and I start to think I'm not a techno person. You're over my head. You're experiencing a problem or an inefficiency, or you're stubbing your toe, or there's redundancies in your organization. And an API is one way technologies can help smooth that out. And a consultancy like Intersoft can help create a roadmap for how to solve those things. You don't need to know anything about this stuff to know you have a problem, and wise minds can come in and get involved in solving it.
Correct. I mean, if it's the right solution, we'll certainly, advise that this is the right solution. This is why it's the right solution, and ultimately what the business case is. How it's going to, if it'll make an organization operate more efficiently, and a whole bunch of collateral benefits, we'll let you know. If there's no way, that automating QuickBooks or any other or applying the API to any other piece of software, has any value to the organization, we'll certainly let you know. So yeah, 100%.
Guys, thanks for another great, interesting conversation. We found a way to talk about API without getting into the techno rabbit holes, and I think it's been really informative to learn the value of what the API is and does, and especially how my business, whatever my business is probably already connecting in some ways, and with the right minds behind it, could be doing more to help me do more in my organization. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Abe Unger and Hy Goldstoff from Intersoft Associates. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for IsAware, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one today. IsAware is powered by Intersoft Associates, who believes the more you know about your IT, the better. Visit us at intersoftassociates.com and schedule your free consultation to talk about how custom software can help your business.